Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about sponges and all about sponges. So first off, are they plants or animals? This is a very common question. So they are actually animals because they're heterotrophic, meaning they don't create their own food, which you can see with plants through photosynthesis. So they're heterotrophic. They have sorry, there are really loud birds here. Um, I don't know if you can hear them, but they also have specialized cells, so that's why they're considered animals. Now, how are they classified? They are kingdom Animalia, phylum Porifera, and their three classes are Calcarea, I don't know if I'm pronouncing these right, Demospongiae, and Hexactinellida. I swear I'm not bad at pronunciations. It's just that one sponge, and the rest of them, yes. Okay, so first Calcarea, they're calcium carbonate sponges. Um, so they're, and then there's, sorry, then there's class Demospongiae. They're made of spongin, which is the most common sponge, and they're the typical spongy sponge. They're the ones that you would see like as bath sponges. And then finally, there's class Hexactinellida. They're made of silica, and they're also called glass sponges. They're made up of 4 to 6 silica-based spicules. Sorry, that was also alliteration. All right. They're made of 4 to 6 silica-based spicules, and they have a glass-like appearance, hence the name glass sponges. Next, I'm just going to go over a simple little diagram, and we'll have our friend SpongeBob over here to help us. So, how do sponges gain nutrients? So they are filter feeders, meaning they feed on small particles from the water. So basically, water flows through the many ostia. The ostia are these little pores that you can see dotted around here, and they go in there, woo, and then they basically go into the atrium, which is the central cavity of the sponge, and then they are pushed out through the osculum. All right, next is a more detailed image. So all we really need to know here is the epidermis, the outside layer of the sponge, then the choanocytes, the amoebocytes. So the choanocytes, they're pretty interesting. They use their flagella to create a water current in the sponge that's able to push out, it's able to push the filter feeding up and through the sponge. So they use the process to obtain nutrients and oxygen, as well as expelling waste. So then they have the amoebocytes. They look like amoebas. They have the typical shape of one. They have actually, scientists have believed that that sponges evolved from protists because of the amoebocytes. And their job is to travel around distributing food and oxygen to the cells of the epidermis, the outside layer of the skin you can see here. So then there's so how it feeds specifically, it has a pore cell, so it goes through the pore cell into the main cavity, the atrium. So the pore cells are the ostia, goes through the ostia into the atrium, and it's 80% effective, which means it removes 80% of nutrients from the water. So yeah, that is how sponges feed. So this is a little bit of a more blown up image. So you can see here, this is the collar cell, the amoebocyte. So the choanocyte, amoebocyte over here is what distributes, and then the choanocyte over here is responsible for moving the water throughout the cell, and it uses its flagellum to do so. So that's how that works specifically. Next up is sponge reproduction. So sponges are pretty interesting in the fact that they can do both asexual and sexual reproduction. So there are 3 ways that they can do it asexually, which include budding. So budding is where it has a little sponge that grows and then pops off, forms a new sponge. So it's pretty simple. And there's also fragmentation, where a little chip of the sponge, it gets off because of like understitches factors such as storm conditions, etc. And then they find a new place to grow. Then finally, gemmules. They are seed-like particles that are surrounded by a skeletal-like structure. They fall off and grow once conditions are favorable. So they're basically like, you could say like backup ships, I suppose. And anyway, finally is the sexual reproduction, which is the most common. So sponges are hermaphrodites, meaning they contain both the egg and the sperm. So basically what happens here is, to put it simply, in simple terms, the egg remains in the cell and the sponge releases sperm into the water column. The water column being the water that it expels through the osculum. And then hopefully the other sponges are doing it at the same time, so that the sperm can enter the sponge and fertilize the egg. Once fertilized, it leaves the sponge and attaches to a new surface until it develops into an adult sponge. So this is a more specific process where the egg cell here, sperm cell, which is a modified choanocyte. Choanocytes are the ones with the little flagellum, as you can see. It's modified. So the sperm cell is engulfed by choanocytes. That's how that happens. And then fertilization occurs. So you know what fertilization is. And then an embryo forms just a clump of little baby cells that form into the sponge, creates a planktonic amphiblastula larva, my bad. And then the larva settles onto the bottom and attaches to another surface or the bottom. So then it grows into a sponge, and the cycle repeats itself. Okay, now I'm just going to go over some basic sponge facts that are pretty important to know, as well as a little summary. So, let me just make SpongeBob a little bit bigger here. Not really working. Anyway, so I'm just going to put him over here. So, sponges are animals. They are from class Animalia, phylum Porifera, and they have 3 classes, which are Hexacotyledonei, don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, which is the hexagon-like with spicules made of silica. And I'm sorry, the birds are very loud here. Continue. So then there is the I can't work with these conditions. Next is Demospongiae, which is made of spongin, the spongy material that you see in this picture here. And then finally there's the Calcarea, which are made of calcium carbonate sponges. So yeah, they're pretty cool. I don't know how many times I said so yeah. I'm sorry. So do sponges have symmetry? They don't. They're asymmetrical, which is another reason why people thought they were plants for so long. But so yeah, that's, oh my god, how many times am I gonna say that? They're I'm just gonna go through a little summary. So they how many times have I said they as well? Good thing like 2 people are to see this. So sponges obtain nutrients because they're filter feeders. They use their choanocytes to create a current of water. Water enters through the ostia, the pore cell, goes through the pore cell to the main cavity, the atrium. It's 80% effective, so it means 20% of the nutrients are still in their waste that they excrete. So it exits, the food exits the osculum, which is the top of the sponge, and they reproduce asexually by budding, fragmentation, and gemmules, and sexually, which is most common because they are hermaphrodites. Not because they're hermaphrodites, they are also hermaphrodites. So the egg remains in the cell, the sponge releases sperm to the water, and another sperm comes along and fertilizes the egg, and then it develops into an adult and attaches somewhere. Sponges are sessile, which means they don't move. Another reason why people thought that they were plants for so long. And yes, that is basically a sponge. They're pretty cool, and they could be used economically. They can be used as bath products. They're actually being used to find medications, and they have a great economical value. Sponges, pretty cool, and you wouldn't really expect it from looking at them. But yeah, thank you and have a nice day.